send messages to our country also.
Let's go to the related issue of militarization of the U.S.-Mexico border. On Friday, President Obama signed into law a $600 million bill to deploy some 1,500 new Border Patrol agents and law enforcement officials along the border, as well as 2 aerial surveillance drones. The bill was quickly passed by Congress in a rare display of bipartisanship. For more on this issue, we're going to turn to Arnoldo García, the program director of the Immigrant Justice and Rights Program at National Network for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. He's joining us from the University of California, Berkeley. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Arnoldo. What about this issue and your assessment of what Congress passed?
Well, the U.S. has been militarizing immigration control and border communities for the last 15 years, and it has consisted of deliberately funneling migrants to cross through the most dangerous and desolate parts of the desert region, and basically pushing people to enter through Arizona if they risk their lives that way. On the U.S. side, there's an average of the remains of 2 migrants are found on the U.S. side, and human rights groups that are tracking the deaths and trying to prevent people from dying in the desert estimate that for each migrant remain found, there's at least 10 other people missing. So not only are migrants the casualties of this militarization of the border, but are also the rights of the communities that are suffering this onslaught on their daily lives. And I think Arizona is the epicenter right now, but the epicenter has changed over time from California to Arizona, from the different parts of the South Texas, and it's also being extended into the interior in terms of how the increase that Obama just signed last Friday also increases interior policing, and also increases the other types of policing on the border, including sending additional soldiers to patrol in Arizona particularly.
Arnoldo Garcia, have you been surprised by the fact that in the first year of the Obama administration, a record number of people were deported, about 75% of them, as we reported, 73% to Mexico, that the mass deportations are continuing under a Democratic administration as they were increasing under the Bush administration?
Unfortunately, we weren't surprised because the government has been increasing or building the infrastructure of a plan called Operation Endgame, which consists of creating the facilities and the policing to their ideal is for every immigrant that's detained, one would be deported. And this includes the increasing of jail beds exclusively for undocumented immigrants who are deportable, and also the doubling of the Border Patrol on the U.S.-Mexico border, and the tripling of Immigration and Customs Enforcement police in the interior. And on top of that, like what's happening in Arizona, is federal programs that allow police to collaborate with immigration law enforcement. So when you have this type of operation, right, this type of strategy and policies to criminalize immigrants and to deport them, then you are going to have increases that we've been seeing. And it's not so much Obama as his president, as part of a compact that exists among the Republicans and Democrats, and also an operative plan that they've been implementing at least since 2003.
We're talking to Arnoldo García, Program Director of the Immigrant Justice and Rights Program at the National Network for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. Laura Carlson on the phone with us from Mexico City, as Victor Clark Alfaro is also joining us from Tijuana. Juan?
Victor Clark, in terms of the impact on the northern cities of Mexico of these continued mass deportations and the militarization of the border, what's been the result on the other side?
Well, in the case of deportations, at least in Tijuana, where we have the majority of the deportations all along the border, there are 3 different kinds of migrants who are being sent to our borders. There are 400 Mexicans being deported per day in Tijuana, and of those, 30% are Mexicans that belong to gangs or come from prisons. Other 30% are Mexicans who were living in the U.S. side for long periods of time, 20 years, 30 years, and the other 30% are Mexicans who just crossed yesterday or a week ago or days ago. But in the case of the first group, the ones who come from prisons and they belong to gangs, they don't have, when they are deported to our borders, nobody's going to hurt them. They don't have any opportunity to work because the way they look, the way they speak. And what we have observed is that they are becoming the labor reserve for the organized crime, because they have all the abilities. They speak English, they know the business of drugs, they know how to use arms, they have contact on the U.S. side, they are reorganizing themselves on the Mexican side in gangs that we haven't seen in the past. They have a way to communicate themselves that we haven't here in the past. And since the lack of opportunities for this sector, specifically of migrants being deported to our cities, they are becoming the labor reserve, and the organized crime are hiring them as hitmen, are hiring them to sell drugs on the streets. And in the case of migrants who are crossing to the U.S. side, we estimated that around 90% of them cross together with human smugglers. And probably we will see in the near future an increased prices in the rates of human smugglers. Probably human smugglers are going to try to find new states to cross to the U.S. side, new spots, new areas to cross to the U.S. side. If Arizona until recently was or is the most important area to cross to the U.S. side, probably with this process of militarization and increased technology and all these things, probably coyotes are going to try to find new states, probably New Mexico, or return to Baja California in large numbers. So we are going to see a change in the stream of migrants, and also because the migrants hear what is going on the border and news of the unemployment and lack of opportunities in what is used to be the American dream, probably we will see a diminishing in the number of migrants trying to cross to the U.S. side.
I wanted to go back to Laura Carlson in Mexico City to ask about an issue that might well be related to this. It's the decision in the last few days of Colombia's Constitutional Court that suspended a deal giving U.S. military access to at least 7 Colombian bases. On Tuesday, the court ruled the deal is unconstitutional and ordered the Colombian government to submit it to lawmakers for approval. In addition to opening the bases to the U.S. military, Colombia also agreed to allow up to 800 U.S. troops and 600 military contractors and granting them diplomatic immunity, the deal coming under wide criticism in Latin America from countries like Brazil and Bolivia, Ecuador and Venezuela, as well as several human rights groups. Explain what's happened here.
Yeah, I think that this is definitely related